ladies and gentlemen, they tell us that we know better. We ask, do we? Do we know what the best possible life for this child could be? Do we know what the best possible physical existence that this child needs is? So, in summing up this debate, I want to talk about two things. First, I want to question, will this make their life better? Will this make their parents' life better as a sub-point for there? And second, I want to talk about the body and the person. I'm going to talk about Emily's extension and why ignoring it doesn't actually, work in this case. So, will this make their life better? They told us they can have a fulfilling life, and second problem basically we just know better, right? We just know better than parents, we just know better than everybody, regardless. That's basically a complete assertion, right? We don't know what the quality of life of someone being forever is. We necessarily don't know how different it would be with regards to the problems of growing up, the kind of experience and the kind of connection to individual people, like the inability, for example, to have any friends for any period longer than 2 years, because when they become 6, they don't want to hang out with a 4-year-old anymore. Whereas, however, in a situation when that person is still growing up physically and you have that connection with you, then necessarily that doesn't exist. But it's either a complete wash or it's different in different cases, and it's completely unpredictable where that's going to be. Especially in this room, we have absolutely no idea of the long-term effects of this. This is a completely new procedure. Presumably, these kids are hopefully going to live to something like 70 or something. What happens when you keep someone as a 4-year-old in a 4-year-old's body for 70 years is that there probably will be a high risk of cancer, as Tom told you, or presumably some other things. Because tampering with nature is like ridiculously dangerous. You can't just assert that there's nothing wrong. Like this assumption from the prof that it works every time, or it doesn't matter regardless of whether or not Emily's stuff that it didn't work half the time and it caused death first time, is irrelevant because 100% success rates are completely unrealistic. Like no medical treatment is. There are harms and there are dangers, and Will simply cannot say, well, that's not important, I don't need to answer that. Like that dodging the question. No, I'll take it later on. Next, this idea of menstruation, right? Like Emily told you, like 13-year-old or 11-year-old goes, I don't know when people menstruate, right? They don't know what's going on. But necessarily, that's why they have their parents to explain it. But 4-year-olds might not possess the mental capacity to completely understand it. They can't necessarily be explained by their parents that it's okay, that's a normal part, that it's just something that happens. Like 4-year-olds are capable of understanding the difference between things that are good and things that necessarily are bad, or things that are normal and not normal. Right? Like necessarily don't need to understand what sexualization is or what the identity of the body is in order to get that far. That's basically an insane point. In regards to parental rights, like they basically hung their case on this idea that we have to make it's about not only making the child's life better, it's also about making the parents' life better. Like, firstly, why forcing choice on these individuals, on the parents is immoral? Firstly, we say children are the physical manifestation of individuals' genetic legacy. Like, children are the future of our parents, right? And all that kind of stuff, right? And this is especially true if these individuals cannot have offspring, which presumably they will not be able to have if they are children. This is especially true if these are single children. Like literally, these kids are the only future identity these parents have. They are literally the only imprint on the human race in the future that these people have. You are denying them that ability to see that child grow up, to have that parenting experience, to have that kind of ideas. Like, yes, it's going to be difficult. And yes, it's going to be more difficult than a normal childhood. But there are still, firstly, difficulties with regards to children growing up. And secondly, that does not, at all, at any point, deny that there are not going to be joys in that. There's not going to be experiences that that parent and that child can share in that kind of a bond, and they can see their children growing up. Like, if we do concede, which we don't, that child should have no control over identity, it does not follow that the parents automatically should, even especially if they're like informed of future risks. Like, how do we deal with this? In other cases, we inform them, here are the potential risks of this medical procedure on your child and future life expectancy, etc., etc. This is the state going, you cannot possibly know the best way to raise your child, your genetic legacy. You cannot possibly know the best way to experience your life and your identity through that child. We, an objective, cold, heartless state, knows better. Why, we ask, is it wrong to want to share that experience? And why is it, how do we know we're doing it in the parents' benefit? Yes.
Other than permanently restraining, how do you propose stopping a 4-year-old's mind with a 20-year-old's sexuality from, say, picking somebody up in a nightclub?
There are going to be difficulties, right? There's going to be difficulties with that. Like, every single person has problems, right? These people will have a lot more problems than other people. Presumably, it might be an idea that if you're the parent of this, not to let their 40-year-old child and a 4-year-old's mind go to a nightclub in the first place. Like, ultimately, if you have some level of guardianship and control over this person, that's where you step in, that's where you try to create that. Like, that's just a ridiculous point, right? Okay. The body and the person. Firstly, we say this gives the state control over the individual body. They've never explained at any point how it's legitimate. Like, presumably, these individuals still have this thing called bodily autonomy. And presumably, when they can't actualize that right themselves, as it does, the right devolves to the guardians. They've never explained how the state has the right to completely screw with an individual's body. Their situation is that a vague greater good exists. Like, we think necessarily not only sets a ridiculously terrible precedent, but it's the state necessarily legislating on the complete unknowable. The state cannot make objective knowledge choices, which is why we devolve these decisions to the parents in the first place, because they know them better, they can make the better of subjective choice than the parents can. No. They've also asserted that the only good existence is as a child. They're denying that existence, and they're denying them the joys of growing up. There are harms in growing up from everybody. First, this idea with sexual abuse, everybody faces that risk. 1/3 of all women, 1/3 of every single woman in the world will be raped or sexually assaulted during their life. This is a fact, right? Like, that is a gigantic harm, right? But the point is, we do not deny every woman's chance to grow up, or we do not force them all to wear burqas because that risk exists. How do we deal with risks like that? We have laws. Like, this is exactly, you don't want a burglar alarm, right? Like that's, you want to blame the victim for having a house in the first place that got burgled. You do not blame the victim, you blame the criminal. Emily told you about the body. She told you about noble points of internal and external identity. We point out that this person will have different experiences to actually being to a 4-year-old, because 4-year-olds don't remain forever. This is a new type of human experience that you're just completely denying could ever be good, right? You're denying them that mode of knowledge, that method of education for nothing. We say also, as Emily told us, that these identities accumulate into collective knowledge, right? This voice of a child's mind stuff that she told you about is completely lost here. I don't think I need to continue with regards to that. Finally, children have desires, and Owen told you that they cannot actualize that vision. This completely misses Emily's analysis on the difference between the body and the mind. Just because they cannot actualize mentally does not follow that they cannot actualize physically. It does not follow that experience is completely meaningless. It does not follow that even if it's difficult, that experience does not have worth or value to that individual person. Eastern philosophies always tell us that experience comes through suffering and through pain, that everybody learns from this. You deny them, these individuals, that temporal existence, that temporal experience, and that just because we know better. That is not good enough. That's why I oppose it.